A mother holds her infant while an empire searches for children like him. Outside her home stands a system built on fear. It divides people into classes, weakens one community, and kills its newborn sons. Inside her arms is a child who cannot defend himself. And then she receives a command that appears, to ordinary human calculation, even more frightening than the danger outside. When she fears for him, she is to place him into the river. How can a river become safer than a mother's embrace? How can the road toward confronting the most powerful ruler in the land begin with a child who cannot even hold up his own head? And what kind of preparation turns that child into Prophet Musa, one of the most frequently mentioned messengers in the Quran? Welcome to the Guided Hour, where every journey carries a story and every story carries guidance. Today, we journey through the early life of Prophet Musa, from a child threatened by an empire to a messenger called to stand before it. The Quran begins this part of the story by showing us the world into which Musa was born. Pharaoh had elevated himself in the land. He divided its people into factions. He oppressed a group among them, the children of Israel, killing their infant sons while allowing their daughters to live. This was not a moment of uncontrolled anger. It was a system. Division was part of the system. Humiliation was part of the system. The destruction of families was part of the system. Pharaoh's power depended not only on soldiers and buildings, but on convincing an oppressed community that its future could be removed one child at a time. Tyranny often wants more than obedience. It wants the victim to lose the ability to imagine a different future. Before the Quran tells us what Musa's mother did, it tells us something Pharaoh did not know. The oppressed people whom he considered weak would not remain beneath him forever. Allah would favor them, establish them, and make them inheritors. Pharaoh believed he was directing history. The Quran reveals that he did not even understand the consequences moving through his own land. In that atmosphere, Musa was born. The Quran does not give us his mother's name. It does not describe her home. It does not tell us the hour of his birth, the appearance of the riverbank, or the words family members may have exchanged. Those details are not necessary for the guidance the Quran preserves. What it tells us is enough. Allah inspired Musa's mother to nurse him. When she feared for him, she was to place him into the river. She was told not to surrender to fear or grief. She was promised that her child would be returned to her and would become one of the messengers. Notice what the promise did not mean. It did not mean she felt nothing. It did not mean danger disappeared. It did not mean she understood every stage between the river and the promised return. The Quran would later tell us that her heart became empty of everything else. She nearly revealed what had happened, but Allah strengthened her heart so that she could remain among those who believed. This is tawakkul in its Quranic reality. It is not pretending that pain is painless. It is not calling danger safe. It is not refusing to take action. Musa's mother nursed him. She watched the danger. She acted when the moment came. She involved his sister. She followed the means available to her. But after every responsible action had been taken, there remained a part of the outcome she could not control. That is often where tawakkul begins to become visible. A person may believe in Allah while still feeling the heart pull toward fear. The test is not whether the human nervous system reacts. The test is what the person does while fear is present. Musa's mother was not asked to deny her love for her child. She was asked to trust the one who had given her that love. The infant was placed into the river. The current carried him away from the home in which he had been protected. To anyone watching only the surface of the water, the child appeared to be moving farther from safety. But the visible direction of an event is not always its true direction. Sometimes a person is being carried away from everything familiar while still being carried toward the fulfillment of a promise. Musa was taken from the river by the household of Pharaoh. The child targeted by the ruler's policy entered the ruler's own household. The same political power that sought to eliminate boys from the children of Israel now found one of those children within its walls. The Quran tells us that Pharaoh's wife saw the child as a comfort to the eye. She urged that he not be killed and suggested that he might benefit them or be adopted. They did not understand what had entered their home. The child would grow into the messenger who challenged the foundations of Pharaoh's claim to power. But the Quran does not present this only as an astonishing reversal. It exposes the limitations of control. Pharaoh could issue commands across the land, but he could not control which child would reach his household. He could attempt to engineer the future, but he could not see the meaning of the life placed before him. He could possess authority over institutions, but not authority over Allah's decree. This remains one of tyranny's central illusions. Power begins to believe that because it controls many causes, it controls every result. Because it can punish speech, it believes it can eliminate truth. Because it can frighten families, it believes it can own the future. Because it can control public life, it believes no plan can develop beyond its vision. The story of Musa begins by breaking that illusion before Musa is old enough to speak. Yet the danger was not over. Musa would not accept the women brought to nurse him. The Quran says that Allah had prevented him from accepting them. His sister had followed him from a distance. She observed what was happening without being recognized. Think about the quality of her action. She did not rush forward and expose the family. She did not allow fear to remove her awareness. She remained close enough to understand what was happening and far enough to avoid drawing attention. When the household struggled to find someone who could nurse the child, she offered a solution. She knew of a household that would care for him sincerely. Through that suggestion, Musa was returned to his own mother. The promise had not required the palace to disappear. It had not required the river journey to be reversed. Instead, the very household that had taken the child now needed the child's mother. Musa's mother received him again, but under conditions no human planner could have created. Her child was returned. Her grief was relieved. The truth of Allah's promise was made clear to her. The Quran directs our attention to a form of protection that moves through causes people may not recognize. A child refuses one source of nourishment after another. A sister watches. A household needs help. A mother appears to provide that help. Every action remains ordinary enough to be overlooked. Yet together, they return the child to the person who had been promised his return. We often expect rescue to arrive through an event so dramatic that no one could misunderstand it. But protection may arrive through timing. It may arrive through someone's careful observation. It may arrive through a door opened by a need. It may arrive through the same institution we thought could only produce harm. The story does not teach that every frightening event will resolve in the way we prefer. Revelation does not make that promise about every personal trial. It teaches that human beings never see the complete field of causes operating around them. What appears to be abandonment may not be abandonment. What appears to be the end of a path may be the beginning of another. And what appears to be a delay may be part of how a promise is fulfilled. There is also a family lesson here that deserves attention. Musa's mother receives the inspiration and carries the greatest immediate burden, but his sister performs a vital role. She watches, she follows, she recognizes the opening, she speaks at the right moment. Her contribution is not treated as meaningless because she is not the central figure of the story. Families often survive pressure because different members carry different responsibilities. One person makes the painful decision, another keeps watch. Another recognizes an opportunity, another provides care. No single person needs to perform every function. This becomes even more important later when Musa himself asks for the support of his brother Harun. The early story and the later calling are connected by a repeated truth. Allah may fulfill an individual responsibility through a network of faithful people. Years pass. The Quran moves from Musa's infancy to his maturity without filling the space with invented scenes. It tells us that when he reached full strength and maturity, Allah gave him judgment and knowledge. Musa had grown inside a deeply unequal society. He knew the world of Pharaoh's household, but he also knew his connection to an oppressed people. He lived near power while belonging to those injured by it. That position could have produced indifference. A person who gains access to comfort may begin to distance himself from those who remain vulnerable. He may decide that another person's oppression is an unfortunate cost of preserving his own security. Musa did not become indifferent. But moral concern must still be guided by discipline. One day he entered the city at a time when its people were not paying attention. He found two men fighting. One was from his community and the other was from the opposing people. The man from his own community called for Musa's help. Musa intervened. He struck the other man. The man died. The Quran does not say Musa intended to kill him. It presents the death as the unintended result of the strike. But absence of murderous intention did not lead Musa to deny responsibility. He did not begin by listing the injustice of the wider society. He did not say that the victim belonged to the enemy and therefore did not matter. He did not use his opposition to oppression as permission to excuse every action committed in its name. He recognized the moral disaster immediately. He connected what had happened with the work of Shaitan, the clear enemy who misleads. Then Musa turned to Allah and acknowledged that he had wronged himself. He asked for forgiveness and Allah forgave him. This moment is essential to understanding prophetic character. Musa would later confront Pharaoh, a ruler who refused to admit wrongdoing even when sign followed sign. But before Musa confronts that arrogance in another man, the Quran shows us his own response to error. He does not become Pharaoh in miniature. He does not use status, identity, or good intention to place himself beyond accountability. Pharaoh's pattern is denial. Musa's pattern is return. Pharaoh protects his self-image by increasing injustice. Musa protects his relationship with Allah by confessing his need for forgiveness. The distinction is not that one person never commits an error while the other does. The distinction is what happens when truth exposes the error. Some people treat repentance as a sentence spoken while everything else remains unchanged. Musa's response included a commitment. Because of the favor Allah had given him, he would not become a supporter of criminals. This is Tawbah with direction. He did not only ask that the past be forgiven. He identified the kind of alliance he must reject in the future. A person who has contributed to harm needs more than emotional discomfort. The person needs a changed relationship with the causes of that harm. What loyalties placed me in that situation? What anger did I fail to govern? What kind of person asked for my support? Did I confuse helping my own group with helping what is right? Musa's commitment shows that community loyalty cannot make wrongdoing lawful. The man who first asked for help was from Musa's own people. Yet belonging to the same community did not make every one of the man's conflicts righteous. That becomes clear the following day. Musa was again moving through the city in fear, watching for what might happen. The same man called to him for help in another conflict. Musa rebuked him as someone clearly inclined toward error. The story exposes a dangerous pattern. A person may repeatedly create conflict and then demand loyalty from others by appealing to shared identity. He may describe every opponent as an enemy of the group. He may turn another person's courage into a tool for his own aggression. The Quran does not allow group solidarity to erase moral evaluation. Before intervening, a person must ask what is actually happening. Who is committing injustice? Am I protecting someone vulnerable, or am I being recruited into another person's recklessness? Musa moved toward the man who was an enemy to both of them. At that moment, the earlier killing became known. The information spread, and the leaders began discussing Musa's death. A man came running from the farthest part of the city. He warned Musa that the authorities were planning to kill him and advised him to leave. Again, the Quran does not name the man. It does not provide a biography. It preserves his action. He used access to information to protect a person facing injustice. He did not wait until the decision became public. He did not remain silent so that he could protect his position among the powerful. He crossed the city and delivered the warning. Sometimes moral courage is a public declaration. Sometimes it is a private warning delivered before the doors close. Musa left the city afraid and watchful. The Quran does not hide his fear. He was not described as emotionally untouched because he would become a prophet. He was a man leaving the place where he had lived, threatened by people with the ability to pursue him. He turned to Allah and asked to be saved from the wrongdoing people. He then directed himself toward Madian, asking that his Lord guide him to the sound path. His life had changed with extraordinary speed. He had possessed familiarity, connection, and access. Now he was alone on a road. He had no public position, no visible security, no known destination waiting with a prepared welcome, no certainty from his own human perspective about what would happen next. Yet this period would become part of his preparation. We often imagine that preparation for leadership must look like increasing visibility, a larger platform, a higher title, a growing circle of influence. The Quran shows Musa being prepared through disappearance from public power. He moves from a palace environment to the road of a fugitive. He moves from intervention in a crowded city to private need before Allah. The person who will challenge an empire first experiences what it means to have no empire supporting him. The person who will lead a displaced community first experiences displacement. The person who will ask others to trust Allah first walks toward an unfamiliar land with little visible support. This does not mean every displacement is a sign of future public leadership. It means that loss of status does not equal loss of purpose. A person may be removed from one environment because another kind of formation is beginning. If this journey is helping you understand the story in a new way, take a moment to like this episode, subscribe to the Guided Hour, and share it with someone who may benefit. Your support helps more families discover thoughtful and reliable Islamic storytelling. Now let us return to the road toward Madian. Musa arrived at the water of Madian. There he found a group of people watering their animals. Apart from them, he noticed two women holding their animals back. Musa asked about their situation. They explained that they could not water their animals until the other shepherds had finished and that their father was elderly. The Quran does not present Musa giving a speech about justice. It presents him acting. He watered their animals. Then he withdrew into the shade. This scene is quiet, but it reveals an enormous change. In Egypt, Musa had intervened in a conflict, and his physical action produced a death he did not intend. At the well, strength is used again, but now it is controlled, useful, and directed toward relieving difficulty. Strength itself is not condemned. The question is whether strength is governed by justice. A strong person may become dangerous when anger decides the target. The same strong person may become a source of safety when character governs the action. Musa did not use the women's vulnerability to demand access, attention, praise, or payment. He saw a need. He helped, he stepped away. This is service without performance. There was no audience being asked to admire him, no guarantee that the action would improve his situation, no promise of food or shelter. Musa was himself exhausted and displaced, yet he remained capable of noticing another person's difficulty. Hardship can sometimes narrow a person's vision until only personal pain remains visible. The story of Musa shows another possibility. Need does not have to destroy generosity. A person may be struggling and still refuse to exploit someone weaker. A person may be hungry and still perform good work. A person may have lost almost everything familiar and still preserve the character that makes him trustworthy. After helping them, Musa went to the shade and made dua. He acknowledged his complete need for whatever good Allah might send him. The sequence matters. He worked, then he asked. He served, then he admitted need. His prayer was not a performance of self-sufficiency, neither was it an excuse for passivity. The story holds action and dependence together. Do what is in your hands. Then recognize that the result was never in your hands alone. This balance is often difficult. Some people act as though asking Allah means they do not need to plan, work, or develop skill. Others work as though admitting dependence would reduce their dignity. Musa waters the animals and then sits beneath the shade as a person in need. His strength does not make him independent of Allah. His need does not make him useless to other people. One of the two women returned. The Quran describes her as walking with modesty. She told Musa that her father invited him so that he could compensate him for watering their animals. Musa accepted the invitation. When he reached the elderly father, he related his story. The man reassured him that he had escaped from the wrongdoing people. The Quran does not name this man. A widespread tradition identifies him as Prophet Shu'aib, but the Quran itself does not make that identification, and we cannot confirm it through a reliable, authenticated report. For that reason, we will not assign him a name. This restraint matters. Religious storytelling becomes less reliable when familiar details are repeated so often that people forget which details came from revelation and which came from later narration. The guidance of the scene does not depend on knowing the man's name. He listens to the displaced stranger. He learns the danger from which Musa escaped. He offers reassurance. His home becomes a place where Musa can begin rebuilding life. One of the women advises her father to hire Musa. She describes the best person for employment as strong and trustworthy. Two qualities are joined. Strength without trustworthiness can produce exploitation. Trustworthiness without the ability to perform the work may produce good intentions without results. The description recognizes both competence and character. This is one of the Quran's most enduring principles for responsibility. When people select an employee, manager, advisor, contractor, public official, or partner, they often separate what should remain connected. They may choose competence while ignoring dishonesty. They may choose familiarity while ignoring ability. They may choose loyalty while ignoring judgment. They may choose confidence while ignoring character. At Madian, Musa's strength had been observed through service. His trustworthiness had been observed through conduct. He did not announce either quality about himself. Other people saw them. A reputation formed from action is stronger than a reputation formed from self-description. This is especially relevant in professional life. A resume can state competence. An interview can present confidence, but trustworthiness becomes visible through how a person behaves when supervision is weak, when another person is vulnerable, or when there is no obvious reward. Musa was not performing for an employer when he helped at the well. The action that revealed his suitability occurred before he knew an opportunity existed. Character often prepares the opportunity before the person can see it. The elderly father offered to marry one of his daughters to Musa under an agreement that Musa would work for him for 8 years. If Musa completed 10, that would be voluntary generosity from him. The man also stated that he did not intend to make the agreement difficult. Musa accepted the clear terms. The Quran does not tell us the daughter's name. It does not tell us which of the two terms Musa completed in this passage. It does not give us scenes from the wedding or private conversations within the family. It directs our attention toward the agreement, the work, and the stability that followed a period of danger. Musa entered Madian with nothing visible except his need, strength, and character. He received safety. He received work. He received family. He received years during which his life was no longer defined by the immediate crisis in Egypt. These years may appear at first like a pause in the great story. No confrontation with Pharaoh occurs, no sea opens, no public miracle is shown. Musa works. He fulfills an agreement. He lives within a household. He cares for animals. He gains experience in responsibility far from the institutions of power. But quiet years are not empty years. Some of the most important preparation in a person's life occurs when nothing appears publicly impressive. The habits built through ordinary responsibility can become the foundation for extraordinary responsibility later. Showing up, keeping an agreement, caring for what has been entrusted, learning the land, supporting a household, living without the praise of crowds. These actions do not look like standing before a ruler, yet a person unable to honor small trusts will not become trustworthy merely because the stage becomes larger. The mission of Musa would require sabr over years. It would require repeated communication. It would require care for a difficult community. It would require movement through harsh terrain. It would require returning again and again to Allah. Madian was not outside his preparation. It was part of it. This offers an important correction to how people understand delay. A person may have a sense that life should be moving towards something more visible. A graduate may believe a certain job is beneath the future imagined. A founder may consider operational discipline less exciting than public growth. A leader may want the authority of responsibility without the repetition through which reliability is formed. Musa's story asks a different question. What qualities are being built in the season that appears ordinary? What promises are you learning to keep? What responsibilities are teaching you patience? What work are you performing when no large audience is present? Purpose is not found only in the dramatic moment of calling. Purpose is also expressed through the faithful completion of the work already accepted. After Musa completed the agreed term, he traveled with his family. During the journey, he saw a fire in the direction of the mountain. He told his family to remain while he approached it, hoping to bring information or something by which they could warm themselves. Musa walked toward the fire looking for something practical: direction, warmth, information. He did not know that he was approaching the moment that would redefine the rest of his life. Many turning points do not announce themselves in advance. A person believes he is solving the problem directly before him, finding a route, searching for warmth, responding to an ordinary need. Then the responsibility hidden beyond that need becomes visible. Musa approached the fire. The Quran tells us that he was called in the sacred valley of Tuwa. He was commanded to remove his sandals and listen to what was being revealed. This was not a place for theatrical invention. We do not imagine the voice. We do not depict Allah. We do not construct a physical representation of revelation. We remain with what the Quran tells us. Musa had been chosen. He was commanded to worship Allah and establish prayer for his remembrance. He was told that the hour would come, even though its timing remained concealed, so that every soul would be recompensed for what it pursued. The first foundation of Musa's public mission was not Pharaoh, it was worship. Before confronting political arrogance, the messenger's heart was anchored in the reality that no human ruler is ultimate. Pharaoh would claim elevation in the land. Musa had heard the command of the Lord of the worlds. Pharaoh would try to make people believe that his judgment determined their future. Musa was reminded of the hour in which every soul would answer for what it had pursued. Pharaoh's political claim could be challenged because it was already false at the level of worship. A human being who demands the submission that belongs to Allah is not merely a harsh administrator. He has crossed the limits of human authority. The confrontation to come would therefore concern more than policy. It would concern who deserves worship, who defines truth, and whether power is accountable. Musa was asked about the staff in his right hand. He explained its ordinary uses. He leaned upon it. He used it in caring for his animals. It served other practical purposes. He was commanded to throw it down. When it became a moving serpent, Musa turned away in fear. Again, the Quran does not erase his human reaction. The future messenger ran from what frightened him. He was called back and reassured. The staff would be returned to its former condition. Musa was also given the sign of his hand, emerging bright, without disease. These were among the signs with which he would approach Pharaoh. The familiar object of his working life became, by Allah's command, connected to a public mission. The staff had been part of Musa's ordinary years. He used it while caring for animals. Now it would accompany him before a ruler. This does not mean ordinary objects possess sacred power on their own. The Quran is clear that the sign occurred by Allah's command. But the transformation of the staff's role gives us a powerful reflection. The skills, habits, and tools developed in a quiet season may later serve a responsibility the person could not yet imagine. What appears ordinary today may not remain ordinary in how it is used. The years of work were not discarded when revelation came. Musa did not become a completely unrelated person. His history, experience, strength, fear, speech, family relationships, and tools all entered the responsibility ahead. A calling does not always remove a person's history. It may redirect it. Then came the command. Musa was to go to Pharaoh because Pharaoh had transgressed all limits. The man who had fled Egypt was being sent back. The place associated with danger became the place of mission. The ruler whose officials had considered killing him became the ruler he must confront. Musa did not pretend this was easy. He made dua. He asked Allah to expand his chest for him, ease his task, and loosen the difficulty from his tongue so that people could understand his speech. This is one of the most important leadership moments in the story. Musa acknowledges the assignment. He also acknowledges what he needs in order to fulfill it. He does not treat fear as proof that the responsibility should be abandoned. He does not treat personal limitation as something shameful that must be hidden. He names the need, emotional capacity, ease in the work, clarity in communication, and then he asks for a helper from his family, Harun, his brother. Musa asks that his strength be reinforced through Harun and that Harun share in the task. He explains the spiritual purpose of that partnership, so that they may glorify Allah much and remember him much. Musa does not ask for a partner merely because the workload is inconvenient. He asks for someone who will help keep the mission connected to remembrance. This is leadership without ego. Musa had received revelation. He had been selected. He had been given signs, yet he still asked for help. Being chosen for responsibility did not mean being required to perform every function alone. Musa also recognized a specific quality in Harun. The Quran tells us that he described his brother as more fluent in speech. He did not experience Harun's strength as a threat. He requested it. In insecure leadership, another person's ability creates fear. A leader may surround himself with people who are less capable so that his own position appears larger. He may silence the person who communicates clearly. He may prefer personal control to mission success. Musa does the opposite. He identifies the quality needed. He identifies the person who possesses it. He asks that this person be brought into the responsibility. The mission is more important than appearing self-sufficient. This principle reaches into families, organizations, community work, and executive leadership. A visionary may need an operator. A strong analyst may need a clear communicator. A courageous person may need someone more patient in negotiation. A leader with authority may need a colleague who notices what the leader misses. Competence becomes more powerful when people stop treating complementary ability as competition. Musa does not disappear because Harun speaks well. Harun does not become unimportant because Musa received the initial call. Each brother has a role within a shared responsibility. Allah granted Musa what he requested. The brother he trusted would become the brother who stood with him. The child once protected through his mother and sister would now be strengthened through Harun. The man who had once acted too quickly in a city would return with revelation, signs, a clear command, and a partner. The fugitive would return, but not as an avenger. He would return as a messenger. His mission would not be to seize Pharaoh's personal luxuries. It would not be to replace one ethnic supremacy with another. He and Harun would call Pharaoh to recognize the Lord above him and release the children of Israel from oppression. The journey to Pharaoh would require courage, but courage would not mean the absence of fear. Musa had feared when the staff moved. He had feared when he left the city. He openly expressed fear of rejection and danger, yet fear did not become his ruler. Pharaoh possessed soldiers, status, buildings, and public authority. Musa possessed the truth of revelation, the signs granted to him, and the companionship of his brother. The balance of power looked one way to the eye and another way in reality. Return now to the mother at the beginning of the story. She held a child while the machinery of an empire threatened his life. She could not see the well of Madian. She could not see the years of work. She could not see the sacred valley of Tuwa. She could not see Harun standing beside his brother. She could not see the day when the child placed into the river would walk back toward Pharaoh with a command from the Lord of the worlds. She received a promise before she received the explanation. That does not mean every hope we form is a divine promise. We must never confuse personal expectation with revelation. But when Allah has clearly promised that truth, justice, accountability, and the final return to Him are real, the believer does not measure reality only by the present appearance of power. An empire may appear permanent. A frightened mother may appear powerless. A fugitive may appear finished. Years of ordinary work may appear unrelated to a greater responsibility. A speech difficulty may appear disqualifying. A brother's strength may appear secondary. The story rearranges every one of those appearances. Pharaoh's palace could not prevent the child from reaching his mother. Musa's mistake did not prevent sincere Tawbah. Exile did not eliminate purpose. Work at a well did not reduce dignity. Quiet years did not mean Allah had abandoned him. Fear did not cancel courage. Personal limitation did not cancel leadership. And needing Harun did not make Musa less of a messenger. The person Allah was preparing was not prepared through one kind of experience. He knew danger and protection, access and displacement, strength and regret, service and need, solitude and brotherhood. Each part of the journey exposed something he would need to understand before carrying the responsibility ahead. The next part of the story will take Musa and Harun back into Egypt. They will stand before a ruler who believes authority belongs entirely to him. They will speak with gentleness, but not surrender. They will present the signs entrusted to them. And they will face a political system that knows how to turn truth into accusation and courage into a public spectacle. But before they enter that confrontation, the Quran leaves us with the image of two brothers joined in responsibility. One asked for help. The other was granted as help. Both would remember Allah together. Perhaps the question is not only whether we are brave enough to carry responsibility. Perhaps it is also whether we are humble enough to recognize the Harun we need beside us. You have been listening to The Guided Hour, where every journey carries a story and every story carries guidance. Until our next journey, may Allah increase us in beneficial knowledge and guide us toward what is true.